In this video, I'm going to teach you the 3 things that are preventing you from being flexible and how you can address these problems. With training your body by targeting these specific areas, it will increase your flexibility and get you the results you want faster. It's a myth that you can't do yoga or be flexible if you're not naturally flexible. In fact, the myth is really in thinking in the first place that some of us are naturally flexible. We all lose hydration in our muscles as we age, so it's a use it or lose it scenario. It's time to use it again. It's also a myth that flexibility is all about stretching. Muscles work together. When one muscle contracts, its opposing muscle stretches or lengthens. So your muscles aren't just tight, they're also weak. It's time to learn which muscles to strengthen and which to stretch. It's time to activate your flexibility. I was never a gymnast or a dancer as a kid. In fact, I was an athlete, a tennis player, and all the conditioning made my muscles so tight. It was designed that way, really, to protect my joints for explosive movement on the tennis court. I was also born with a condition called spinal stenosis. It's a narrowing of the spinal canal, and it's a degenerative disease, which means it gets worse as I age. Even though I've been practicing yoga for 27 years and teaching for 17, I'd always thought of myself as painfully inflexible, and I was sometimes even embarrassed to call myself a yoga teacher. Over about 3 years ago, I ended up having emergency spine surgery. It was a tough healing process, and I wasn't sure if I'd ever move with any freedom again, and I even contemplated quitting teaching yoga. But luckily, instead, I became really curious to explore if I could move freely again, if I could become more flexible. So I began to research different techniques and also understand my particular limitations with my spine injury more. After incorporating all that I learned into my daily routine, my body began to open up in a way it had never before, despite both my age and my injury. I'm living proof that you can increase your flexibility no matter your setbacks, and I'm going to show you how. Here are the 3 things that are preventing you from being flexible. First, tight and weak opposing muscles. Second, the fascia that encapsulates the muscles. And third, your nervous system. Now I want you to notice that age isn't on that list. So let's run through these areas a little deeper. What do I mean by tight, weak, opposing muscles? Your skeletal muscles move your bones like levers. Muscles work together to do this. Whenever one set of muscles, called the agonists, contracts, this built-in feature of the autonomic nervous system causes the opposing muscle, the antagonist, to release. This is called reciprocal inhibition. When I engage my quads, it lengthens my hamstrings. When I engage my glutes, it lengthens the psoas. And when I engage my external hip rotators, it lengthens the adductors. Once you understand which muscles is the agonist and which is the antagonist, you can then know exactly which muscles you need to stretch and strengthen in order to activate while you're in a stretch and send signals basically to the opposing muscles. Now, fascia is a sheet of connective tissue that both is designed to stabilize and separate your muscles and organs. It accounts for almost 41% of a muscle's total resistance to movement. Fascia gets tighter with repetitive movement and with our sedentary lifestyles, but it can be reshaped. Now, your nervous system. Your brain sends signals through your spinal cord to relax or tense your muscles. When we begin to leverage these signals, we can almost trick our body into flexibility. Flexibility is as much overcoming our mind than anything. By employing different techniques that target addressing all of these 3 areas, you can increase your flexibility. Using reciprocal inhibition by contracting the agonist muscle is going to always help stretch the opposing muscle. Using yin yoga, which is a supplemental yoga practice, its entire intention is designed to stretch the fascia so that you can begin to reshape the webbing that surrounds your muscles. PNF is a proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, and it triggers a reflex. This reflex is a protective one that calms the muscles to prevent any injury. Now, in order to explain this, I want to break it down. We need to talk about the 3 types of muscle contractions. So one you're most familiar with is a contraction. An example of this would be a bicep curl. When I flex at the elbow joint, the bicep contracts. Eccentric contraction, the muscles actually lengthening while contracting. An example of this is goddess pose or horse stance. Your adductors are contracting eccentrically while also lengthening. Isometric, there's no movement at all. Many of our standing yoga poses use this type of contraction, but we can also access isometric contraction by creating resistance, and that's where PNF comes in. PNF utilizes isometric contractions. By creating some kind of resistance to the very muscle you want to stretch, it will trigger this reflex to relax the muscle. This is done in a systematic way though. You're going to contract the muscle isometrically for about 6 to 10 seconds at just about 30 to 40% intensity. Then you'll relax for 20 seconds, and then you'll do this 2 more times. Now, each time that you relax, you should see an increased range of motion. You can utilize this with many of your yoga poses, and in fact, oftentimes your teachers are cueing this action without you knowing it, and sometimes without even them knowing what this technique is. Every time your teacher says, imagine you're dragging your heel back towards your hip in something like half splits, that's an isometric contraction cued to help you go deeper. The missing link, though, is using this technique more efficiently and correctly in your practice. I want to address one final concern that you might be having: comparison to others. If you've ever compared yourself to others in regards to flexibility, maybe you see someone new to yoga just glide into a split or progress into flexibility quickly, you might be scratching your head wondering why that's not you. 2 things. They're likely coming from another discipline like dance or gymnastics or calisthenics, or it's even possible that they have something called hypermobility. Hypermobility is the stretching of joints farther than their normal range of motion. It might be easier to access these yoga poses, but the danger is in relying on your joints, and this can end up actually causing injury. If you're hypermobile, you especially want to learn to strengthen your muscles to protect your joints when doing poses that stretch, because you're generally going to rely on those joints to stretch and could get injured. I've designed a flexibility program for anyone who wants to understand their body better, overcome what's preventing you from increasing your flexibility, and unlock your potential for accessing deeper yoga poses. On a deeper level, I want to help you discover more freedom in your body and help you to transform your life by just shattering these limiting beliefs you've held about your own flexibility. You can be flexible. Are you ready to activate your flexibility? Let's get started.